This film lets you know what you're in for without pulling any punches in the first few minutes. John ostensibly dies in the opening minutes, and then we cut back to a montage of his morning routine with 2 coffee cups, 2 sinks, and his wife's stuff still strewn about, meaning this just happened or is happening live. All that to say, a depressing wife dying montage is the fastest way to set the tone of this film. Dire. It's dire.
It's days like today scattered among the rest.
You know, he's something of a philosopher himself.
Are you sure?
Don't blame yourself.
There's your basic premise. Can a man find redemption, and should a man be allowed redemption when his sins are so vast? The boogeyman is humanized really well with some mundane cleaning up. Aw, Daisy, the puppy is always a wife win. I'm so glad nothing happens to her and she's totally fine. Quick reminder that John isn't totally healed because of the new puppy, even if it helps. Also potentially an outlet for adrenaline that he no longer has now that he's left the life. Hey, look at that, Daisy the dog escaped. Look at her being totally fine and alive. Well, those meanies are gonna get it now, making John's dog run away to a happy home with someone else. Ooh, he's gonna be steaming. Okay, so the dog is fine, but the impactfulness of this scene has nothing to do with actually seeing a dog be harmed. Yet, it's one of the most gut-wrenching animal deaths in a movie ever because of what the dog represents. Nailed home by Daisy crawling up to John to die near him. I hate this movie. Also, for anyone wondering why Yosef doesn't kill John, not only is murdering humans harder, I mean, even serial killers start with animals, but it plays right into who Yosef is. He's a fake mobster, he's not a hardened criminal, and he doesn't have the stomach for murder. Plus, leaving a random guy for dead is exactly what someone like Yosef would do. Death wouldn't be embarrassing enough. He just doesn't know who John is. A sloppy drift from Theon compared to John's seasoned drifting at the airport. Details.
Where'd you get that car?
John Leguizamo, you... Oh, the way the realization of whose car it is comes across his face.
We own you.
Poor Alfie Allen, always relegated to the second generation of a really powerful guy, but is actually just a weasel himself.
Because he stole John Wick's car, sir, and killed his dog.
Oh.
The reverence John Wick gets. Like he's the freaking angel of death. That's all Vigo needed to hear. And Aurelio is so scared because he just happens to be the shop where Yosef brought John's car, he pulls out the Pelegriso, which by the way means dangerous in Spanish, and prepares for John to potentially end him. I don't think he was actually afraid of John, it was just about respect. A big theme throughout this film, especially the consequences of lack of respect. In the realm of punishments, if you consider that he only gave him the shot of vodka so that it would burn on the way back up, woohoo, that's some mafia parenting. Man. Rest in peace, Michael Nyquist. That little motion to clean his son's face off, making it clear for the audience that he does care for his son with a simple gesture, makes his decisions later on speak volumes as to who John Wick is to these people.
Vigo?
Especially when he immediately hits him again. And also Mayhem's response. You've all seen Splinterheads by now, right? I recommended it like 3 years ago. Also, the very deliberate shot of Vigo grabbing a different bottle puts a whole other spin on the vodka shot. I can't make out what the bottle is, which means it's most likely expensive and rare, something you toast with, which he gives to his son and then immediately takes back. Now to actually drink, he switches to a less expensive, probably his preferred vodka to tell the tale of John Wick. And now, John literally smashes through the foundation of his new life to resume his old life.
Kill 3 men in a bar. With a pencil.
Fun fact, Shibumi is also about a man coming out of retirement to kill some dudes with a pencil.
The bodies he buried that day laid the foundation of what we are now.
That's no small thing. It's safe to assume Vigo has John to thank for his current reign of power, most likely by murdering all of his competition, meaning John's hands are filthy.
John will come for you, and you will do nothing, because you can do nothing.
Vigo knows how this is all going to play out before John's even dusted off his guns. But you can't blame him for throwing his entire life and business, and lots of goons, on the John Wick pyre to try to save his son.
Handle this like civilized men to move on.
In the subtext of essentially begging. Vigo can't literally beg, but he knows what he's doing, John knows what he's doing, and it ain't working.
What'd he say?
Enough.
All my research has taught me that everything Russian in this film is just wrong, from accents to translation, right down to the way they talk about Baba Yaga. But the stylized subtitles for the song are pretty sweet. See, this is what we do here. We take a bad, we find the good. The world building in this film. Assassins don't enter in tactical gear, they come in suits, son. And John makes his Neo leather look like child's play. Then the insanity starts, and the movie proper actually begins. This slow build-up with the music as if we're about to get a typical hard rock action scene, and then the music completely cuts out when John starts killing because there can be no distractions to what we're about to see. But even when the score kicks back in, it always takes a back seat to sound effects, or even plays into them, some of which John uses, like the goon's magazine falling to the ground, letting him know he can attack. And this isn't your grandpa's Hitman story. No mercy. Now feels like a good time to talk about something everyone knows. Keanu Reeves turned out to be a total and complete badass who trained for months to actually do 90% of everything we see him do in this film, which is why cuts are few, cameras are steady. Keanu Reeves is always a win. I'm just realizing this is my first Keanu movie. How is that possible? And just some signs of an exceptionally trained killer. He recognizes someone on the wall, ducks knowing he'll shoot where he used to be, and will still be standing tall. And how about this fantastic camera work and direction? Oh, brutal. Oh, sheesh. Could probably throw a brutal counter up there. Baseball bat to the head is pretty brutal as well. Also this punch, because you know the implications. Plus, I needed a way to win John Leguizamo decking Theon and then staring down a gun again. Also, this freaking long take. What is this movie?
You, working again?
Just for the record, I don't think it's so much that they have an understanding, more so, what is the beat cop gonna do? I like the respect going both ways, but, you know, someone complains about the dragon burning stuff in his cave, you just say, have a good night, thanks for not burning me and the rest of the city.
I'll leave you be then.
Is the contract exclusive?
No, it's open.
Consider it done.
In hindsight, notice Marcus takes the job because it's open so he can help John. Also probably so he can use his awesome gun safe hideaway again. John walks in with his own music playing in his head because he's not here to have a drink. He's here on business, or pleasure, business pleasure.
You dip so much as a pinky back into this pond.
Every time I identify Ian McShane as Al Swearingen, I get corrected, but no one could deliver such a silly line like Al Swearingen. I never really dislike suiting up scenes, but John Wick adds a whole new level, knowing he's going to use every one of those weapons on someone.
20 килограмм.
So he actually says 20 kilograms, but the translation is 60 pounds, which would be roughly 28 kilograms, and guess how many guys are inside for John to kill?
Why don't you take the night off?
Honor among thieves. He's not just on a rampage, he still has something of a code. Real men don't even need one-liners. They just kill you. The way he leaves his arm there? What is this movie? Eesh, not only brutal, but the old I'm ripping your soul out with my eyes stare. He is the angel of death. That look. Always the incapacitate shots followed by the let's just make sure headshot. No one ever said John didn't make mistakes. It's his adaptability. And I'm always gonna win a movie for introducing me to a new song/band, in this case, Kaleida. I really don't think he's missing here. He's leading Yosef, but the glass is just stopping or deflecting the bullets too much. The camera on Yosef is shaky, confused, lost, zooming in and out while it's smooth and controlled on John's face. Apparently Russian henchmen don't watch enough Star Trek wearing those red shirts. There's no movie magic. His actions aren't exaggerated. He releases the magazine, reloads, chambers around, and shoots the guy point blank. The lack of Hollywood beauty somehow makes it all the more beautiful. And I haven't even mentioned his mix of martial arts, a little judo, jiu-jitsu here and there, and that little spin was a little Aikido-ish. Okay, first, finally someone used that beautiful beard as a weapon against him, and second, I can't believe Tate went down so easy. He was like the penultimate boss for the Equalizer. Also, I get that Mission Impossible and John Wick are different movies. We don't need to see Ving Rhames writhing on the ground in agony, but John Wick treats it a little more realistically. And while Beta Boss Boy here is a pretty decent fighter, getting shot is good enough reason for John to lose this fight. Not to mention John's been killing his way through this club for quite a while, and this dude is fresh. So I think it's fair to say John's more than only human.
Hiya, fellas.
Remember this guy?
Only human.
Same guy. Brutal. Call back.
How good's your laundry?
I'm sorry to say that no one's that good.
This whole interchange. Nothing the manager hasn't seen. Ooh, Blanton's. I'm a single malt scotch guy myself, but when in Kentucky, or when bleeding from a bottle stab wound, actually, no, you probably shouldn't. I'm pretty sure it thins your blood and makes you bleed out.
Take 2 of these beforehand.
Red pills from the keymaker, no less. You may start to question your very existence, but you'll know gun fu. Been on edge about Marcus the whole movie, and that could have been a mistake. It wasn't, but first time through, you're still unsure. 8th time through, you realize the reason he didn't kill Perkins is that he didn't want to break the Continental's rules. Ha! Bobby uses that strap on her jacket as a garrote. The old G-choke.
Vigo will kill me.
Not only is it a no-look back walking away from a fire and slow-mo scene, but the fact that he doesn't even take $1 for himself. He doesn't want leverage, he doesn't want to bargain, he just wants vengeance. I'll just never stop being amazed by Keanu's tactical training at this point. He handles a CA-415 like he's been using one for years. And I've never known anyone so obsessed with headshots.
In that moment, I received some semblance of hope. An opportunity to grieve unalone.
I really enjoy this break and explanation of why this is all so important. You know, contract killer with a heart of gold isn't anything new, but it's not about the dog per se, it's what the dog represented.
You can either hand over your son, or you can die screaming alongside him!
Self-confidence? Constantly shaking up the fighting styles, this time with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu while handcuffed. Always making sure.
Cool it.
Ad-libbing from Michael.
It's kept in a safe house, Brooklyn.
And now you know who John is to Vigo. Got some Matrix fans. Long take, dolly back with a badass, I don't know, puppy avenger? Badass puppy avenger walking towards his target. No hesitation, doesn't even give him his last words. Also, this entire assault is so much more a cakewalk for John. He's never out of control. I'm not really a car guy, but even I recognize a Mustang, a Chevelle, and a Charger, making sure our All-American hitman gets a ride in each All-American classic. Brutal.
You go out on my terms. No, my good sir. I go out on my own. See?
Willem Dafoe is always a win.
You got my cigarette? Yeah, I got your cigarette.
I'm just realizing the slow but absolute unraveling of Vigo. Most of the time we see him, he's consuming some kind of mind-altering substance. Shots with his son kicks the whole thing off, he drinks almost an entire bottle of 18-year-old Glenlivet during his men's first assault on John, that he knows is the beginning of the end. Then he rejects vegetable juice because why would he bother worrying about the future? On the night he knows his son's going to die, he tries to get as high as he can to numb the pain. And now he's just wasted, asking for his cigarettes like a basic bro and giggling about his impending doom.
What's wrong with this guy? My guy need a gun.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Mayhem's little commentary throughout this chase. He's always been the odd one out, like the American who thinks he's just in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's probably anti-stormtrooper aim, or is it a no-look kill? Let's call it both. I know he didn't really shoot the guy, but that was all done in camera. Come on with this movie. I think he was just pleased he was so close. OMG, the drivetrain disintegrated.
No more guns, dog.
We've all agreed that final boss battles in the rain are always a win, especially where one man throws his gun away in order to drink his opponent's blood from a boot. Even though Vigo is our final boss, I appreciate that John kicks the snot out of him and Vigo has to cheat and pull a knife to prolong what's left of his life. And that's a brutal way to gain the upper hand. Imagine using a knife leveraged against your abs to break someone's arm.
We're seeing you, dog.
Polite professionalism to the bitter end. Aw, he saved that pooch's life. I started to discuss this film's themes, but something I really love is that the main question asked only gets the beginning of an answer. John is our protagonist, so we connect with him, we sympathize with him. Hell, the movie has to kill a puppy to make sure we're on the right side when the choices are Hitman, who's really good at his job, and freaking Theon Greyjoy, who killed a puppy. But the cracks are there.
Want another bottle? Go get me a bottle!
No one ever claimed John had a special code during his Hitman days where he only killed bad guys. We don't know. I mean, he did try to steal this pen, and his house and clothing and car are some clear evidence that he profited from it all. His skills and willingness to use them to bury bodies also allowed him to exit that life to be with his wife. We briefly get both sides of the argument in the first conversation in the film between John and Marcus. Look, John Wick movie and man are awesome. I'm just saying a prequel to this movie could potentially alter our sympathies. Even the crime boss knows that your sins can come back to haunt you, like karma sorting it all out. If that were true, John would probably die by the end. But maybe his punishment is a little more sisyphical. Yeah, it's a word. I made it up. All words are made up, Drax. Meaning he's doomed to roll the murder boulder up a hill only to have to roll it back up while collecting dead bodies. I joked about the dog being okay a lot, and he is, but I get it. I get why the movie needed to kill John Wick's dog. For starters, the murdered wife has just been done to death, and John would have looked pretty petty if he needed to go murder 833 people because they stole his property. It was only 77, but it felt like a lot more, didn't it? But most importantly, we'd be much less likely to connect with him. Instead, they killed his dog, so kill them all. What I find interesting is that this movie reeks of a man going out in one last blaze of glory. Nothing to lose, just rampage. But it's really not. It's a scorned man calmly righting some wrongs. The scene where he explains why the dog was actually important and why he's been unleashed on Vigo is just about the only emotion he shows in the film. And his overall attitude is part of a larger reason why John Wick works so well. A lot of people agree that this is the best American action film in years because of long takes and realistic fighting and gunplay, and I don't disagree. But we've had movies like that before. However, when you blend that with a heightened comic book graphic novel reality, That's when you change cinema. This film is first and foremost a piece of art. Mikey Newman of Movies with Mikey fame goes deep into the Greek mythology in the movie, among a bunch of other awesome stuff. Go watch his video. But I had an additional take on one character in particular, the hotel manager named Charon. Yes, the ferryman from Greek mythology. John literally pays gold coins to send his victims to the underworld. Logistical filming reasons aside, I love that Charon is just stuck behind the desk collecting gold coins to offer safe passage to people who bring him the dead. But it's even more than that. There's something so out of time about the John Wick universe. Yet it also feels like our universe now. I mean, I can buy the hitmen are paying each other with pirate treasure and that everyone wears suits because it just looks better, and you get executed for breaking the Continental's labor laws. But we all know by now the gunfights and martial arts are about as real as they can be. It feels visceral because everything John Wick does is done by Keanu Reeves, who was trained at Terran Tactical to do so. Our hero reloads, and when he's mid-reload, it matters. When he's out of magazines, he fights with his hands. When he's trying to rest, he's in boxers. He switches between weapons realistically depending on the situation. Keanu Reeves is a badass. And when you want stuff to look real, you use all the best stuntmen in the business. They actually got so many in this movie that there was nothing for Keanu Reeves' stunt double from The Matrix to do, so they just let him direct. I'm kidding, obviously. Having stuntmen at the helm is what makes this movie look the way it does. Thank you, Chad Stahelski and David Leitch, for knocking it out of the park. Side note, Leitch is only uncredited because of stupid Hollywood bureaucracy. He was just as involved and important as Stahelski. They, along with screenwriter Derek Kolstad, created an astonishing universe for these characters. There's something so neat and orderly about the entire hitman assassin underworld that makes it so believable, just under the surface. From the very matter-of-fact execution of Perkins, to the one cleanup crew that removes your bodies, to how polite the hotel manager is regardless of the situation. And, you want to talk about art? How about the color palette in this movie? Usually pretty straightforward. John gets blues and greens when he's winning, Vigo and his men get reds and yellows. You can actually predict what's going to happen based on lighting color. This dude leaves his red light and enters John's blue light of death. Now John leaves his blue and gets into trouble in the goon's red light. When he gets shot, the blue and red mix to bathe him in purple with his future uncertain. Marcus is usually wearing or backdropped in golden light, as is Daisy, as is Helen, representing John's new life away from all the killing. You hit a scene like the Hitman nightclub and every color is represented since every type of person is represented. A couple of other things. After I finished and recorded the first part of this script, I found a few other cool resources. First is Aaron's site, fancyasf.com. All these links are in the description, by the way, where he more or less chronicles Vigo's descent into madness in a much more detailed way than I did, all around his alcohol choices. Also, this Reddit infographic about all John Wick's kills, when, how many, and with what weapon, and obviously Movies with Mikey's episode on John Wick. It's one of my favorites. I actually have to credit Mikey for anything of mine that sounds like it's from his piece. Just assume it is, because while I felt like I was coming up with stuff on the spot organically, I watched his video years ago and his stuff gets stuck in my brain. Also, for a much better explanation of how John Wick is art and visual storytelling, Kevin wrote an awesome breakdown for Medium. He really gets into the color changes as well. So there's John Wick. Much requested, glad I got to do it. And spoiler alert, I'm looking forward to number 2. But next week we're going to a different universe as well as a little announcement about the channel. See you next week.
Good to see you, John.